Hi guys, James at Rampant Lion Reviews again for you today with another beer review. For this one, we are going to stick to Sweden and we're going to return to a brewery that's featured on the channel many times before. I've had some really nice beers from these guys over the last couple of years, and I think it is most definitely fair to say that this brewery is best known for their different New England hazy, whatever you want to call them, IPAs. Now the beer we're looking at today is one of their latest releases. It's very highly rated, and I have to say I'm very curious to see what it's going to have in store for us. So hopefully it's another good beer, and hopefully you guys enjoy my take on this one as well. So for this review then, we are going to head up to Örebro, which is out to the west of Stockholm, and we're going to have a look at another beer from Apex Brewing Company. So this particular beer is called Hexis Ipa. It comes in at 6.5% ABV, and as you might have guessed from what I said earlier, this one is another New England hazy, whatever you want to call it, IPA. So yeah, if memory serves me correctly, this beer was released as part of the Local Småskaligt assortment through Systembolaget here in Sweden for July of 2022. I might have the month wrong, so don't take that as gospel. But it was available for a period of time through Glassbanken.se before that. So yeah, I'm curious to see what it's going to have in store for us. But it's supposed to be very nice, and we haven't been disappointed by Apex Brewing in the past yet. So let's see what this one is going to do. So as always with my reviews then, I'll tell you a little bit about the brewery before we taste the beer. If you want to get straight to the tasting, just fast forward. All the usual links are found in the video description below. That's the brewery website, the link to my other reviews that I've done from Apex in the past, and there will no doubt be more in the near future. But there's all the usual social media down there, so check that out. And you can also check out the playlist of beers from different countries. You will find this one in the Swedish list. And yeah, there are many other interesting things in there as well, so do check them out. But let's get on to my brewery notes, and we'll have a little chat about the brewery history then before we taste the beer. So yeah, Apex Brewing Company were founded in Norra, which is a little bit to the north of Örebro, and the company was founded officially back in 2017 by Daniel Gatchitz and Niklas Lundgren. Both of these guys are musicians, and Niklas played in the band 59 Times the Pain, whereas Daniel played in The Voice of a Generation. But Daniel and Niklas are responsible for the brewing operations, but there are a few others involved in the company on the business side of things as well. So this is Leif Carlsson, Ola Eriksson, and Roger Hjelm. But they started off with a small 500 litre brew kit with 6 fermentation tanks, and they were just selling their beers in the local area to different restaurants and things like this before they got them into Systembolaget. And I believe the first beer they had in there was simply called Single Hop, and that was a Citra New England IPA, and I reviewed that for you on the channel, and it was pretty damn awesome, I have to say. But in 2018, they brewed around 35,000 litres of beer per year, and they produced about 25 different varieties, all of which were New England IPAs, of course. And then the following year, in 2019, they'd scaled up considerably, and they brewed 120,000 litres. Over the next couple of years, they continued to expand their capacity, and in the summer of 2021, they announced that they would move to a new premises in the Betorp district of Örebro in the autumn. So they've moved there now, and this has seen them upgrade their 500 litre brew kit to a 2,000 litre kit. They've got several new tanks, and thus they are able to export a lot more of their beer. So some of you watching in different countries will most likely be able to come across some of the Apex things fairly soon, and they are pretty good, so you can look forward to that. But as of September 2022, when I'm filming this review for you, these guys have produced 115 different kinds of beer according to Untappd. As I said earlier, they are best known for their different New England hazy IPAs, but they have been producing a few lagers as well. They have the Keller Pils, if I remember correctly, and also the Keller Märzen, and I've reviewed the Keller Pils on the channel for you before, and you will see a review of the Keller Märzen shortly as well. So keep your eyes peeled for those. But yeah, if you're into the New England hazy IPA style, then Apex Brewing Company is one of the Swedish breweries that you want to check out. But yeah, that is all I can tell you about Apex Brewing Company for the moment. There will no doubt be more developments to add into the notes at some point in the future. But yeah, if you want to learn more, you can check out the brewery website. You can go and have a look at the reviews I've done for some of the other beers they've produced as well. And yeah, we'll see how they do over the next little while. But let's get on and actually have a little look at this beer itself. So I'll just let you have a little look at the artwork on this one before we open it up. As you can see, it's in the standard Apex Brewing Company style. You've got this nice kind of almost Illuminati type triangle with the animal on top. This time it is, of course, the chicken without the head. Just dropped in to see what my condition was in. So yeah, obviously another music reference there. But yeah, really nicely presented, this one. 440ml can. If memory serves me correctly, I paid 50 Swedish kronor for this, which is about €5, £4.50 sterling, maybe $5.50 American, for those of you watching in different parts of the world. You can see there, plain silver top on the can, and this is one of the other kind of symbols that you'll always find with the Apex beers: music, people, and beer. But yeah, like we said earlier, this one is a 6.5% New England Hazy IPA, and I did write down the malt base and the hops in this one. So the hops in this are Mosaic, Incognito in the wort boil, then they add Citron, Mosaic, and Nelson Sauvin after it's cooled down. So that's dry hopping, and then there's got a malt base of extra pale malts, torrefied oats, naked oats, caramel hill, and chip malt as well. So this should be quite an interesting one actually, and it of course uses a WLP 66 London fog yeast. So yeah, quite a classic hop mix in this actually. Mosaic, we know, 14% alpha acid, big American hop that gives you lots of tangerines. Citra, 14% an American once again, but that gives you a lot of mango, can give you a good bit of passion fruit as well, but also a good bit of a lemon limey citrusy character. And then we've got Nelson Sauvin from New Zealand, 16% alpha acid, big white green grapey characters as well. Chip malt is quite interesting. It can really give you a nice kind of dry bready character, and I'm curious to see what the caramel hell is going to do in this one as well. But as we say, it's 6.5% ABV, so I'm curious to see if this is a slightly sweeter single New England IPA, this one. But yeah, as we said earlier, this one is called Hexis IPA. Let's get it out into the glass and see what we have. So yeah, 6.5% New England Hazy IPA from Apex Brewing, so I don't think we can really go wrong with this one. So yeah, there we are. This should be good. Yeah, quite a wee bit ahead on this one, but you know, as I said earlier, it has been sitting in the fridge for about a month or so, so we have to be careful with that. So we need to bear that in mind when we're doing this review, and that is just because I was having computer data problem, should we say. But yeah, this one has poured pretty much as you would expect from a New England Hazy IPA. So you can see it's got about a finger and a half of a frothy, I would say kind of cream coloured head. You can see if I bring it up to the camera there is a good little bit of bumpiness to the head, but it looks very, very nice. So colour wise, I would describe this one as being a little bit more like a kind of mixed tropical fruit juice. Now remember, the colour of your beer depends on 1, the type of malts that you use. That goes a long way to determining your EBC rating. 2, the length of your wort boil is also going to affect the colour of your beer. The longer you boil the wort, the more the sugar's caramelised, thus you get a darker colour of beer. In the case of a New England IPA, it is normally 90 minutes that you'll boil it for, but any adjuncts that you put in and any barrel aging that you do will affect the colour as well. But yeah, it does look pretty nice. But I think probably the caramel malt in this one is what's going to be giving it that slightly more rich yellowy colour. But like I say, definitely fair to describe this one as being a bit more kind of rich and yellow compared to some of the other ones we've had in recent times. But yeah, in terms of the level of haze in this one, it's not the soupiest and gloopiest of New England IPAs that we've come across in the past. Remember, the level of haze in these beers depends on the oak content, wheat content, and to a degree the yeast as well. But I think we have seen hazier 6.5%ers than this one from Apex. But we do have to remember it is a wee bit older, so there may be some sedimentation. So when we pour the rest in a bit later, that might change. But yeah, appearance-wise, nothing untoward, I guess we could say, about this beer when you consider what style it is. And I don't think we need to say anything else about the appearance. There are 1 or 2 big bubbles sticking to the side of the glass, which you always get, but you can see a few just going up toward the bottom of that head there. But yeah, I think we should have a taste of this and see how we go. So, or have a look at the aroma, I should say. It's a bit too early for the taste. Let's look at the aroma and see what we have in store for us. Oh yeah, I'm going to say straight away, this is really quite nice. And I'm going to say it leans toward the oaty side of things for me. It's got a lovely big kind of juicy fruity character. You're getting the Citra, the Nelson Sauvin, and the Mosaic, although I think the Nelson Sauvin and the Mosaic are the ones that are really sticking out to me, and it's got a nice soft green component. That's the first thing I'm really noticing about this one. But when it comes to New England's, I think there's 6 variables you need to think about. There is the kind of the yeasty character that comes out of them, the yeasty farmhousey sort of thing, the rye leaning grainy side of the beer, the wheaty bitiness, the oaty creaminess, the barley malt bread, and also the sweet side of things. So these are the 6 variables, I think, the 6 different directions you can take a New England IPA in. But for me, this one strikes me as being kind of sweet, kind of oaty leaning, but also quite, barley malt leaning at the same time. But it's got a very, very nice aroma to it, I have to say. But we do have to remember it's not in its optimum condition, this. But yeah, I think it smells really nice. So let's break this down for you. Straight away with this one, you're going to notice there is a very light kind of dash of, fresh. There's a light dash of a kind of fresh white bread crust in there. You can smell that barley malt bread, the kind of fluffy sort of thing, but at the same time you can smell the wheat just thickening that out. So the deeper the deeper you take in the aroma with this one, you do get a little touch of wheaty bitiness in the back of the nose. But as I say, bread crust, soft white bread, you can feel the wheat just thickening that up. And then you've got the whole oaty creaminess note coming out of this one. You can tell that this beer isn't in its kind of prime condition because you can smell a little bit of dryness from the oats, but it is giving you a very slight porridgey note at the same time in the aroma. So you can certainly smell a wee bit of that. On top of that, there's definitely a degree of sweetness to this one. You get that sort of butterscotchy, butter candy note. But because it's the caramel hell, you actually do get a straight up caramel on this one. For the most part, I find that New England's give you a more butterscotchy character than a straight up caramel as you would get in the West Coast, California, whatever you want to call them, IPAs. But yeah, this one definitely has a bit of a straight up caramel note to it, which I do enjoy. So yeah, gets a thumbs up from me in the aroma side of things. There's not too much in the way of crackery character out of this one. I think the oats and the wheat feel quite heavy in this, and they cover any notes that you would get from there. But yeah, I think that's everything we need to say about the malty side of the aroma. On the hoppy side of things, definitely a little bit of earthiness in there. That's Mosaic that's going to give you that out of the 3 of them. Nice bright floral character, and there's grassiness in there too, and both of them are quite bright and zesty in a way. So I really like how all of that goes together. But yeah, as I say, big grassy floral note coming out of this one. Some nice zesty notes in there as well. The green component is actually quite pungent in this, I will say that. And it's been a wee while since I've had an Apex beer, so I can't really think in terms of comparing it to some of the previous ones that we've had. I looked at my notes, I think it'd been about 6 months or so since I've reviewed an Apex beer. They hadn't released anything for quite a wee while, if memory serves me correctly, potentially longer than that. But yeah, it is very, very nice. On the fruity side of things, for me, big, bright tangerine oranges, that's Mosaic all the way. You do get a bit of the passion fruit in there, and you get a bit of the juicy mango. But I think for me, it just feels like Mosaic is dominating this one. And when Mosaic has been used as the early edition hop, that would make sense. So remember, with New England IPAs, they tend to rely on late edition and dry hopping, but this one obviously does have some hops in the whirlpool as well. So early edition hops mainly give you your bitterness, and that's the first hour of the wort boil, but then late edition hops within the last half hour, they give you a little bit of bitterness, but mainly flavour and aroma, and then dry hopping is after the wort boil. That gives you simply flavour and aroma, nothing else. But yeah, they've used a little bit of Mosaic Incognito early on in this, so it makes sense that the kind of orangey characters are dominating and that the earthiness has a bit of presence too. So yeah, lovely big oily orangey tangerine notes to this one. You do get a little bit of the passion fruit and the mango in there from the Citra as well, but I do get that kind of white, green, grapey, slightly gooseberry note from the Nelson Sauvin too. There is maybe a little tiny hint of lime to this one. You can sometimes get some lemon and lime from Citra, and that's kind of showing up in this beer as well. So yeah, the way the aroma goes together in this beer, I think is very, very nice. So it gets a big thumbs up from me aroma wise. So I think it's about time that we had a taste of this one. We're going to put the rest of the beer in, just so that we get the full experience. There's 1 or 2 little sediment particles floating around in there, but it's all natural. I'm sure it will be fine. But yeah, let's get stuck into this beer and see how it goes. I always say, they'll take a bit of time and enjoy that aroma, but we'll taste this now. So yeah, this one is the Hexis IPA, 6.5% New England IPA from Apex Brewing Company in Örebro here in Sweden. Slange, skål, cheers. Oh yeah, that's pretty nice, I have to say. It's first impression of it compared to some of the other Apex ones that we've had certainly is thicker and creamier. Definitely sweeter. Green component's not quite as pungent as I thought it was going to be, and it's just got this lovely big juicy fruity character to it, so it gets a big thumbs up from me, this one. This is an interesting New England IPA, and it's certainly up with the standards that I would expect of Apex Brewing. Yeah, really enjoying this. So yeah, very happy with that, absolutely. Where do we start with this then? Middle third of the palate. The more that I just let this settle, the more oaty leaning it becomes. It really is quite nice. So yeah, focus on that middle third of the palate. So the backbone of the beer, you get a little light bit of that kind of fresh white bready bread crust that you would expect of the style. That is absolutely there. And yeah, on top of that, the white bread just kind of takes over. You can feel the wheat immediately just thickening out that whole middle third of your palate. And then on top of that, you've got the big creamy oaty notes in there. And I will say, I was picking up a good little bit of dryness from the oats, and usually the dryness of the oats in a New England IPA give you some indication of how old it is. The creamier and they smell, usually the fresher the IPA is, the kind of drier they smell, the slightly older it is. But in this one, in the flavour, it's just so creamy. It's almost got this kind of porridgey consistency to it, which is quite interesting, the malt base. But I really like that. So yeah, little slight bit of bread crust, wheaty note, like big smooth wheat. I guess that's the chip that's doing that, really smoothing the thing out, and you get the big oaty creamy notes on top of that. But there's definitely a degree of sweetness in the middle third of the palate as well. Yeah, I mean, I think that goes together really well, actually. So it's it's actually quite a straight shooting beer, this one, compared to some of the other ones we've had. But down the middle line of your tongue, you can feel you do have in the dead centre of your palate, you get a little bit of a straight up caramel, and then as you move further out from that, you get a bit of a kind of butterscotch, butter candy sort of thing. And then as you move to the edge as you move toward the edge of the palate, you get a little bit of that McVitie's digestive biscuity sort of thing, and then you've got that whole big porridgey bready sort of thing underneath it as well. Toward the front of that middle third of the palate, there's a very slight woodiness for me that comes out in the aftertaste, and you maybe get a little hint of a Jacob's cream cracker thing once the palate's properly adjusted to the beer. But yeah, I think it's very nice. Yeah, the malt base in this, I think the malt base is very well done. With these New Englands, of course, the focus should be on the hops, but I think you can't underestimate having a good malt base to back up your hops. And I think Apex have done the chip malt and the caramel hell malt that's in this. I think it works very well. Other than that, I don't think there's too much to say about the middle third of the palate. Back third of the palate then, you can feel the bread crust does get a little bit grainy. Remember, more grainy and bitter flavours come out toward the back of the palate, the sweeter flavours come out further forward. So then yeah, the bread, you've got a wee bit more bread crust in there. You've got some soft white bread on top of that, and then you can feel the more airy, yeasty notes in as well. There's a little touch of bitiness from the wheat too, but you can feel the more airy, yeasty character coming out of this one, which I really like. So yeah, wheat, yeah, definitely a wee bit of a kind of bread crusty base. The back third, yeah, the wheat thickening out a little bit, more airy, yeasty, bready notes, and there's just a wee kind of tiny touch of yeah, you get that sort of crackery thing with the yeast too, but you can definitely feel on the back third of the palate, the flavour feels taller then as you come further forward, it just condenses down a wee bit, and that's where you get the oaty creaminess and the kind of thicker notes out of the beer. But yeah, on the hoppy side of things, and I think we've said everything we need to say about the malty side of the beer. Back corners of the palate, you've got a little bit of earthiness in there. As you move further forward, it gets a little bit herbal. The earthiness, I think, will be from the earthiness will be from the mosaic rather than anything else. But as you move further forward, it's a little touch herbal, and as you reach the front corners of the palate, you've got a little bit of a floral aromaticity, but not too zesty or anything. It's actually more of a wet green component that I'm getting out of this beer. But round the front curve of the palate, there's a more of a light grassy sort of thing, and just a teeny little bit of zestiness to it. But yeah, nothing really unusual going on with this beer, I have to say. It all kind of makes sense, if you like. Yeah, so yeah, green component is nice and smooth. Yeah, it does. You get a little bit more bitterness out of it into the aftertaste, but yeah, it's quite muted, I think we can say. So on the fruity side of things then, so front third of your palate, the border region between front third and middle third of your palate, you get a little bit of bready build up in there, sort of white bread. Then the base of the front third of the palate is definitely more kind of oaty. I think that's definitely fair to say. Yeah, I do like how that goes together, absolutely. But then on top of that, you get that nice oily bubble where the fruity juicy esters roll their way out of the beer, and there is a fair wee bit of stuff going on with this. So at the back of that front third of your palate, you absolutely get a little bit of you get a wee bit of the passion fruit, and then the juicy mango from the citra kind of sitting there. Then as you move further forwards, you maybe get a bit more of a kind of, you can feel a bit of like an apricot papaya note, bit of dryness in that middle third of the palate. You get a wee bit of that more dry tropical fruit. But then the front half of the front third of the palate, it's interesting because you've got the Nelson Sauvin and that oily white green grapey gooseberry flavour sitting underneath. But then on top, you get the big oily tangerine, slightly zesty character from the mosaic sitting there, and maybe on the very, very tip of the tongue you get a little kind of hint of a limey zesty note. So yeah, all of this kind of goes together, but it's the fruity side of this beer is really nice and kind of big and oily in a sense, and that's kind of in keeping. It's really interesting how this goes together. It's a big creamy oaty bready leaning New England IPA, but you've got these big juicy fruity notes coming out of it as well. So yeah, I think it does go together very, very nicely, this one. So again, it gets a thumbs up from me. I think it's interesting for sure. So yeah, certainly wouldn't hesitate to drink this again, but from memory it is one of the more thick, creamy New Englands that I've had from Apex. But I've got another one in the fridge just now, and I'm curious to see how that turns out, because that is a little bit fresher than this one is. But yeah, Hexis IPA, pretty good. So let's round off this review with a wee look at the mouthfeel. So mouthfeel wise, for me, this beer, top end of mid-bodied, smooth carbonation, very creamy in its mouthfeel. For me, it's one of the thicker single New England IPAs that I've had in recent times. In terms of IBUs, I think this one's actually quite low. I think this is maybe about 25 or so a wee bit lower than some of the other ones we've had recently, but we have to remember it's not in its prime freshness. The malt base has a lot of breadiness to it and a lot of big thick oaty creaminess, but also a good degree of sweetness as well. And then you've also got some really nice oily fruity character to this one, a mix of tropical and a mix of kind of more citrusy fruit as well actually. But I think the mosaic is the one that really dominates, followed by the Nelson Sauvin. I think the Citra takes a bit of a back seat in this, but you do feel it the further into the aftertaste. You get a bit of the lemony note, and you also get a wee bit of the passion fruit pushing its way out either side of the more oily fruits there. So yeah, the way that this beer goes together in that sense, I think, is very, very nice. Just another really solid New England IPA from Apex, and this is what we've come to expect from them over the last couple of years. But yeah, I think we can leave it at that for this review. So once again, thank you for watching my beer reviews. Until the next time, please like, subscribe, share. Check out all my social media and things like that. Make sure you check out Apex Brewing Company, and we will no doubt return to these guys at some point in the very near future. So this was the Hexis IPA, 6.5% ABV. Definitely one of the more kind of creamy OT beasts that I've had from them over the last few years. But yeah, very nice to film another Apex one for the first time in what feels like a good while, and I will catch you guys on the next review. So until then, slàinte, skål, cheers, and see you very soon. Hexis IPA, Apex Brewing Company in Örebro here in Sweden. Slàinte, skål, and cheers.